Hey everybody, it's Steve Phoenix Mays here at Rust is Gold Coffee and Garage. Thaison's got a brand new Triumph Scrambler that he's pretty excited about, but of course, in typical Rust is Gold fashion, he's got to start taking things off. Throw a couple shout outs to people that have been kicking us gear and parts and graphics and things like that to help us do these builds. So I want to thank Dr. Vinyl out in Rio Rancho in Albuquerque. She's going to be doing some graphics on Thaison's fly screen, and who else has kicked us some stuff?
So Scott Cloniger. But we'll edit that together. It'll sound great. But we want to thank Scott over at Triumph. He gave us a smoking deal on this Scrambler, which is really cool because part of our tech talk, we've been working a lot on our Harleys for the flat track and a little bit of Steve's BMW for the road racing, and we haven't really talked about anything modern yet. This is a pretty new concept bike, came out in 2019, so we're really excited to get the parts on this thing, start going through it, put it on YouTube, and give you guys kind of a tech talk tutorial, because there isn't a whole lot of information out on these bikes yet because there's not a whole lot of aftermarket parts. So big shout out to Triumph Albuquerque and Scott. I'm not even going to try and say your last name today. And we thank you guys. Thanks for supporting the community. Thanks for supporting our coffee shop and our garage. You guys keep this thing functioning and working. So thank you. So again, big shout out to Triumph. They hooked us up with some parts on the cheap. Scott over at Triumph Albuquerque, New Mexico. So first thing we're going to be doing today is we're going to be doing a lot of different parts as they start to come in, because we have to order all these from Triumphs. There's nobody really making stuff right now, aftermarket parts for this Scrambler yet. So the first thing that I thought would be kind of interesting is these are actually foot pegs for a Triumph Tiger. They're not actually for this Scrambler that we have here. So these are cool kind of aluminum cast foot pegs, bigger foot pegs from Triumph Albuquerque. They don't make an offset for these foot pegs just yet, but as I went down to Triumph the other day and was looking at these with Scott, I think these are going to work because for the most part the bracket and the bracketry looks pretty close to being the same. So I'm going to walk you guys through how to take these on and off. These are kind of important for these Scrambler bikes because, you know, if you're going to be doing stuff off-road and you're going across cattle guards, if you're from New Mexico, from Texas or Arizona, somewhere like that, you're going to want to stand up on this bike. If you're wearing boots, these kind of guys, they're not bad. These pegs aren't bad, but you will slip off. So I'm going to upgrade these to some beefier ones. Nobody I know right now has done this. As far as I know, I haven't seen anybody take Triumph foot pegs, Triumph Tiger foot pegs, and put them on a Scrambler. So that's the first thing we're going to do. And this is going to be a trial by error. So I'm not sure if this is actually going to work, but I think it will. Second thing is, I like to have mirrors that are kind of low hung or a little bit smaller than these big ones that sit up here. So we're going to take off the handguards. You have to take off the handguards to get to these new mirrors. They kind of just sit a little bit lower, a little bit smaller, and they're going to hang down like this, which just kind of gives it a sleeker look up here. I personally like my bikes to feel more stripped down, even though it's a Scrambler and it's made for off-roading. We're going to do some of those things here today. So some of the tools I think we're going to need: Allen keys, like a 5.5 millimeter and a 5 millimeter. We're going to use one of these guys to take off that safety ring that goes on for your foot peg. And really, that's about it. This is pretty self-explanatory. It's a pretty easy thing to do. These handy dandy boxes that come with all your stuff from Triumph doesn't have an instructions, so that's why we're here today, to kind of help you walk through these things. Relatively, most of this stuff here in the ballpark of a couple $100, and it's going to change kind of the look and the appearance and the feel of the bike. So stay tuned. Last but not least, you always got to have coffee when you're working on your bikes, right? This is going to keep you awake. All right, so for the mirrors here, to take these off, we have this Allen 5.5 millimeter, and we're going to basically kind of loosen it up by just kind of twisting the mirror, get it nice and loose. It doesn't look like Triumph used Loctite on these, so these are coming off pretty easy, which is nice. We're going to keep all of our hardware. We're going to keep these mirrors. Just in case at some point, if I ever want to sell this bike, I have the original hardware, which some people like. So again, we got the original bolt. We'll just put this back together in case anybody in the future ever wants to put this back on. So now that we got the big mirror out of the way, I'm just going to set it aside. And I actually like to put all of my parts, this is just a thing that I like to do. I actually put my original bolts back together whenever I'm taking something apart, and I'll kind of separate it and put it in a bag. That way I don't get things mixed up. I'll put that off to the side. The next thing that we're going to do is, it looks like we got to take off our hand guards. Same. This, I don't think it's going to strip with one of these guys, but I'm just going to use this Allen set here because I know it won't strip on this guy. So again, you got a little bit more leverage, so you're not stripping out the bolt. You can kind of just twist it off nice and easy. You never want to force anything on these bikes. You want to take your time, especially on new bolts. They'll strip out on you really fast because they can be soft. So these little caps you want to keep, because this cap is going to go back on when we put our side mirror on.
Hold it in your hand for a second.
You don't want to lose this. And again, I don't think I'm going to need Loctite. So now we're going to take off this bolt here, which is going to hold the guard in place. And then you have your two bolts on this side. As you can see on this side here, if I really wanted to, which I might do later on, if I wanted this to be clean, I would take off this whole lever mechanism, and I might cut this and grind this down nice and clean and then repaint it, because right now it's just going to be sitting there. It's not the worst thing. It doesn't look awful. But again, if you want a real clean look, you're going to want to use that. Also, for these bolts that are in here, it's a little bit smaller. It's a 4mm. I'm just basically going to take these off, crack them. Same thing on the bottom bolt here. You have two of them. Okay, so it's the closest two on the inside. And you can start to see this guy loosening up. Lefty loosey, righty tighty, even though it's coming from Britain. It's not going to be backwards.
Are you saying the Brits are backwards?
No, no, not at all. I love British people. I love British bikes. All right, so for this guy, now we're just going to kind of have to like slide this off, just wiggle it. And you want to be really careful here too, because you actually kind of have to like bend this down. You don't want to like mess up any of your levers. You don't want to mess up any of your cables. And you really want to kind of just pop this off without forcing it too much. Come on. Just like that. So you don't want to really damage any of this stuff in here, and you definitely don't want to pinch these guys. So again, the plastic hardware is going to have a little bit of a lip on this side. This is going to face inward, okay, not outward. Obviously, you don't have the room for that. So it's going to just basically slide over the existing handlebar, like so. Then you want to put your mirror over that little bracket. And then here, we're going to tighten this guy down. Once it's kind of tight, you can kind of adjust it. But I'm just going to kind of look at it and make sure they're both spaced out equally. Put your bolt back in place. Grab your 4mm. Start tightening it down. And you want this to be pretty tight. I mean, obviously you don't have to use like a torque wrench or anything to like get it specific, but you just don't want it sliding around on you. Okay, one little torque, not too much, because you don't want it on there forever. And once it's in place and it looks pretty even, we're good to go. Now again, like I mentioned, you want to keep this cap. You don't want to lose this, because this is going to go over this to kind of buffer it and just give it that clean look. You can buy these aftermarket caps. I think they're like $6 a piece. I don't mind the brushed nickel look or aluminum. And bam, our mirrors are done. Gives it kind of a cleaner look up top. All right, now that the mirrors are done, we're going to move over to these foot pegs. Again, this is the stock foot peg. One of the cool things is, if you don't want to buy the aftermarket foot pegs right away, you can actually pop these off. You can pop that rubber piece off, and this is going to give you a better, like, you know, footing for if you're doing off-road stuff. Not a bad foot peg by any means, but again, I want to go with something more aggressive. Triumph Tiger foot pegs, and these actually mount up the same exact way. So first thing first is just keep an eye on your bracketry. These have like a bolt that slides between your hardware and your foot peg and the frame. Now it has this little clip on the back, which I'm going to use this little pick, and you can kind of pop your foot peg up. And you don't have to get super rough with these. You actually want to be really gentle because you want to keep these little clips because you're going to need it. This is what keeps the peg from sliding in and out. So basically I'm just going to take my pick and pop it off like so, and you want to keep this, don't lose that, whatever you do. Then from here, really, you can just pop it up with your finger. I'm guessing I'm going to have to pull this up a little bit to get to it. And it comes out like comes out like so. All right, and it's going to go back in the same way. So again, your spring is going to go fed in from here. We're going to get the peg in and the bolt, and last but not least, the clip. Again, this side's a little trickier because you have the shift lever, and if you don't have an extra set of hands, what I'm going to do is just basically feed this zip tie in place. You don't have to do this, but it just makes it easier for me. I'm just going to cinch this up so it's kind of up high and out of the way. Now that's going to give me some room, and I don't have to like mess with the brake lever as it's going. Again, you put your clip up here, your spring, feed this through, and if we get this right, this bolt's going to go through it. Got to find that hole, push it through. Again, you don't want to force it too bad. And then you're going to put your C-clip back on. And bam. But like that, we have a brand new look for this bike. And again, as more mods and more parts start coming in, this thing is going to start getting a complete makeover. So again, thank you guys for following us. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, make sure you send those questions or comments on our YouTube channel. Like, follow, subscribe. Again, Russ's Gold Racing Garage. And thank you guys for the support, and we'll see you guys on the next Tech Tips.